Here we go. It's sharp 6 p.m. India time. And once again, I, Ajay Jha, on behalf of ACS India team, welcome you to today's ACS Science Talk session. Just to update you on upcoming ACS Science Talk, please visit our ACS in India webpage and register for the upcoming sessions. We have also updated the past lecture recordings on the ACS Science Talk virtual library. Please feel free to visit, like, subscribe, and share among the scientific community. We have ACS India webinar coming up on new education policy by Professor V. Ram Gopal Rao on Wednesday, September 1. Feel free to register and enjoy the session. To keep you updated with the latest research findings, the product launches at ACS, we have a monthly newsletter, ACS Insights India. Subscribe today for free. We'll provide the link into the chat box later. And now to begin with the scientific session, it's a pleasure and honor to have Professor Vivek Ranade with us. So Professor Ranade is a Burnell Chair Professor of Process Engineering at Burnell Institute, University of Limerick, Ireland, and a Professor Emeritus at the School of Chemistry and Chemical Engineering of Queen's University, Belfast, UK. He's also Director of VIRA Process Technologies. Professor Ranade led chemical engineering research at CSIR National Chemical Laboratories, NCL, India, and has also worked at ETH Zurich, Switzerland, the Technical University of Delft, and University of Twente, both in the Netherlands. His research focuses on developing insights, innovations, and intensified solutions for sustainable energy, water, and chemicals. He uses computational flow modeling, hydrodynamic cavitation, and MAGIC, modular, agile, intensified, and continuous process to achieve this. He's a recipient of numerous awards, and including the coveted Santi Swarup Bhatnagar, the highest award in science in India, and Swarn Jayanti Fellowship of Department of Science and Technology. He's a fellow of iChemie UK, Indian National Academy of Sciences, Indian National Academy of Engineering, and Indian Academy of Sciences. He has published more than 150 papers, more than 20 patents, and 6 books. Currently, he serves as the deputy editor at the Journal of ACS Engineering Gold. Now, I would like to invite Professor Ranade to deliver his talk.
Thank you. Thank you, Ajay. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to my friends in India. It's a pleasure. Good evening to all of you. Who have joined from India, and maybe good afternoon to some of my colleagues here in Europe. It's a pleasure to talk to you, and I jumped on this opportunity when ACS India invited me to give this talk for 2 reasons. It's always a pleasure to connect with my Indian friends. Secondly, I have recently, as probably you know, taken up a role of a deputy editor of ACS Engineering Gold. It's a new fully open access journal. So what I have thought today is maybe first few minutes I'll spend briefly introducing you this new journal to you. Well, not so new, it's almost 6 months now. The journal is operational. So I'll introduce that journal to you, and then maybe 30 minutes or so I will spend on discussing some of my recent work on valorizing waste biomass to you. Like while I was working in India, I had never worked on biomass. So I started this work when I moved to Ireland in 2016. So I thought it's a good idea to update you on what I have been up to after I left NCL 5 years back. So that's my plan, right? So as I mentioned to you, ACS, probably you are all familiar that ACS has launched 9 fully open access journals in different specific subfields in the broad area of course, chemistry and chemical engineering. Started in early this year, January 2021, and Professor Shelley Mentir from University of Utah has taken up a role of editor-in-chief. Today, I'm going to specifically talk about one journal out of these suite of 9 fully open access journals. I have taken up the role of deputy editor of ACS Engineering Gold, and Professor Linda Broadbelt from University of Northwestern, she has joined the team as an associate editor. So both Linda and I, as you know, also serve on as an associate editor for industrial engineering and chemistry research. So the whole plan is essentially we bring that experience of serving on conventional or really old journal, Indian industrial engineering and chemistry research to that experience, bring that experience to this new journal. This is an open access journal. It's completely different philosophy than the journals beyond paywall or hybrid journals. Idea is essentially offer you a platform so that you can take your validated research results to public without any barrier. And Linda and I have put together a team of editorial advisory board. We have 18 members now. I have highlighted two names here who are from India, Sridevi from IIT Delhi and Rajnish from IIT Madras, Chennai. Both have joined this EAB, and with the help of this editorial advisory board and Linda, I hope that we will shape this engineering ACS Engineering Gold Journal, which will essentially allow you a new platform for publishing your research in the broad area of applied chemistry and engineering. So we are essentially looking at applied chemistry, chemical engineering, and energy. These are three main sectors which we are looking at. If just to draw some parallels with more established journals, more established ACS journals, for example, ACS Engineering Gold will serve an alternative, fully open Plan S compliant platform to these three ACS journals: Industrial and Engineering Chemistry Research, Journal of Chemical Engineering Data, and Energy and Fuels. So that's a very brief analogy with some of the known journals of ACS. So at ACS Engineering Gold, we plan to in fact offer an alternative Plan S compliant platform to these three established journals. As I mentioned to you, scope is applied chemistry, chemical engineering, and energy. Essentially, we are looking at fundamentals that will cover thermodynamics, transport, reaction engineering, catalysis, computational models, and so on. Processes, new products. New products not necessarily mean only catalysts and materials, but also hardware, devices, and of course, energy, including renewable energies, hydrogen, decarbonization, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of a broad scope. So as editors, what are we looking at the manuscripts which are coming to ACS Engineering Gold? Broadly speaking, I have just put in here three points. We're looking at broad scope. The results should be of interest to broad audience interested in applied chemistry and chemical engineering. The manuscript should summarize current state of the art, bring out the novelty of your work, and of course, bring out the importance and relevance of that work to the field of study. I'm not saying anything new here typically, but I just want to take this opportunity to re-emphasize that these are the key points which we would like to see in the manuscripts submitted to ACS Engineering Gold. Another point which I want to emphasize here is we are essentially looking at results which are more generalized and applicable to systems beyond a specific system discussed in the manuscript. So that's in fact one of our criteria to select and evaluate the manuscript. So I just thought that though these are not really three new points, I just thought that I will emphasize those 3 points here. And as I mentioned in one of my earlier slides, I think we are looking at different types of manuscripts, right from perspectives, reviews, articles, letters, short notes, and so on. What I have done here is I've just put in one slide each on perspectives and reviews just to clarify some of our current thinking process on these. So perspectives, we want to differentiate perspectives from reviews. We want to treat perspective as more like a personal review rather than kind of a comprehensive review. The primary goal of perspective is to share personal opinions about the field and personal views of the field and inspire and direct future research efforts. So that's the objective of perspective. And I would request any one of you are interested in submitting perspectives, please consult either Linda or me beforehand. For reviews, the whole suite of these 9 ACS open access journals have come up with a unified policy that any person, any researcher interested in submitting a review should send email to Chief Editor Shelley with typically 400-word description of the topic, about 10 key references and highlighting how the review will be different than some of the currently available. So these are again points which are not new, but the process is typically prospective review writer will send an email to Shelly and with this material, and essentially we can then get back to you on either on reviews or perspective, as I mentioned. So that's a very brief introduction to this new platform for publishing your research. I'm sure that you would like to see your results are broadly seen by wider public, and those results are available without any barrier to your audience. And therefore, we are really looking forward to receive your manuscripts. Right. So that's about the ACS Engineering Gold. Though I'm tempted to take the questions, I think let's take the questions at the end. And what I will do now is, without really any further ado, I will switch to my technical talk, because I want to make sure that we have adequate time at the end to tackle questions on journal as well as on my technical discussion. Okay. Right. So I hope I'm in time. Ajay, am I doing all right?
Yes, it's fine, Professor Ranade. Please continue.
Right. Okay, great. Okay, so let me start with valorizing waste biomass. And as I mentioned to you, I'm rather new to. I was rather new to valorizing waste biomass when I moved to Ireland. As probably you know, a lot of people in Europe are working on valorizing waste biomass. Europe is, in fact, the first continent which has said that by 2050, Europe wants to become climate neutral. So there's obviously a lot of emphasis on circular economy and waste utilization. So I also started looking at that. With my background on multi-phase reactors, which I was working on while I was at NCL, we essentially thought that try to identify area where some of our previous experience will be fruitfully exploited. Right? So that was the purpose. We were looking at then we took a review of variety of different ways of biomass valorization, and eventually based on that preliminary analysis, I thought that the waste valorization via anaerobic digestion is one of the better suited way, particularly to countries like India. And that's how I have picked up that topic. So I'm going to talk about valorizing waste biomass with the help of anaerobic digestion. So I'm going to cover that. I'm not reading these slides. I'm sure you have ample time to read these slides while I'm talking about. Okay. Just to put that in a context, I don't want to spend too much time. All of you are familiar that and aware that why waste valorization is important. But just for the sake of completeness, I have put in two slides, one on sustainable development goals. And it is really essential to create, not just to mitigate solid waste, not just to solve the problem of solid waste. We really need to convert this solid waste into a resource, valuable resource, if we really want to realize these sustainable development goals of clean and affordable energy, decarbonization for managing climate change, and inclusive economic growth. So if you want to focus on these three goals out of whatever 16, 17 sustainable energy goals, I think valorization of waste biomass becomes a key component in achieving all these three. So clean energy, decarbonization, and particularly inclusive economic growth, because waste biomass by its nature is found in rural areas and in a distributed way. Right? So if we can come up with a better ways of valorizing waste biomass, not only we will generate clean energy and help decarbonization, but we will also realize inclusive economic growth. Right? So the whole goal is typically what Dr. Mashelkar, who used to be NCL director, he has advocated that MLM approach, right? More from less for more people. So that's kind of a philosophy behind all this valorizing waste biomass. circular economy, particularly in Europe, there's a lot of emphasis on circular economy. But I think particularly in countries like India, it is really important to have that circular economy, particularly in agriculture side. If you can recover not just energy and valuable compounds from waste biomass, but also fertilizer, those fertilizers can be recycled back to farms and agriculture, because as you know, India is heavily dependent on potash and other fertilizer imports. If we are able to recycle those fertilizers, that's an added advantage apart from the valorization of waste biomass. So considering these points, we essentially started looking at anaerobic digestion. Just one slide for characterizing waste biomass. I mean, there are a variety of different wastes. And from the chemical engineering perspectives, when we look at waste, what do you call as waste and what do you call as resource? So typically, you call anything as resource if price of the product which you can recover from that material, mass fraction of product, is greater than the cost of converting the raw material to product, right? So simple, very simple first year chemical engineering. So if you look at that, anything can be converted to resource provided that your product, the valuable product price is high, or either mass fraction is high or cost of conversion is low. And essentially as a chemical engineer, obviously you need to work on all the three. So you need to select a product which is high value, need to recover that in as much as possible, so increase mass fraction of product and bring down cost of conversion. So chemistry and chemical engineering has role in all of these areas. Particularly for anaerobic digestion, you also need to understand biological entities, because this transformation occurs via microbes. Okay. If you look at waste biomass, or typically general waste materials, broadly speaking, waste can be grouped into two parts. One is like a dilute mixtures. So you take, say, for example, a pollutant wastewater, industrial wastewater. It contains carbon, but it is in a very dilute form. So typically like 10,000 ppm or less. Right. Alternatively, you may have kind of slurry, or like you may have a solid waste material like, say, biomass, but the valuable compounds in that biomass or that material are put in a complex arrangement, though in the form of chunks, right? So it is not homogeneously dilute mixture like, say, for example, industrial wastewater, but it is kind of a mixture of valuable chunks put in together. So typically lignocellulosic biomass or waste, agricultural waste biomass is of this second nature, where cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin, these kind of three valuable compounds are interrelated and formed in a complex structure. So unless you have pre-treatment, unless you have way of separating those valuable chunks, you will not be able to valorize it. Okay. So coming back to waste biomass, this particular talk is focusing on waste biomass after the preliminary studies. I'm not going into details of why we eventually selected waste biomass and anaerobic digestion, but just trust me that the basic analysis indicated that valorization of biogas via anaerobic digestion made significant economic sense, particularly for countries like India, where decentralized manufacturing or decentralized production of clean energy like biogas or bio-CNG is valuable, right? So we are not looking and not going to talk about thermocatalytic or any other valorization routes of biomass. We are specifically focusing on valorization via anaerobic digestion. Okay. And I'm not again going through all the criteria why we thought that anaerobic digestion is important. Just trust me that we did this analysis and concluded that particularly for countries like India, it is very relevant for doing anaerobic digestion. I'm giving more emphasis on India, but I think some of these technologies are equally applicable to countries like Europe. Say, for example, Germany has very, very advanced anaerobic digestion program, though most of those anaerobic digestions are run using energy crops rather than the waste biomass. Okay. We are not really looking at the anaerobic digestions of energy crops in this today's talk. The focus is on utilizing or valorizing waste biomass, agri residues, or like pressed mud in sugar mills and so on, or bagasse even, to valorize into valuable compounds via anaerobic digestion. What are the advantages of anaerobic digestion? It's quite a robust technology, relatively low capex. Again, for countries like India, where capital is costly, it is important to have low capex technologies. Most importantly, it can handle wet feedstock. Right? So typically, waste biomass is all available with significant moisture content. And if your process requires to dry it, that is a significant energy consumption, significant carbon footprint, and so on. The advantage of AD is it can handle wet biomass. Several other advantages: it can help you to recycle fertilizer, which is again very important. However, AD, anaerobic digestion, is rather slow. So if you are typically, if you want to look at from the chemical engineering perspective, 100-meter cube reactor is considered as quite a large reactor. So anaerobic digestion processes are so slow that typical anaerobic digester, industrially relevant anaerobic digesters, will be in 1,000-meter cube, like 5,000-meter cube, 10,000-meter cube reactor. Right? So it's a huge reactor, mainly because the conversion process is so slow. Residence time is of the order of weeks, like 4 weeks, 3 weeks, and so on. Despite having such a large residence time, typical carbon conversions are low. Right? And I have said that you can recycle fertilizer from the digested coming out of the anaerobic digester. However, recovering fertilizer from digestate is also not very straightforward. It is possible, however, you need appropriate processes to convert or to extract fertilizer from digestate. So these are the 3 areas which we thought we will focus on and develop some of our and use some of our chemical engineering experience to intensify anaerobic digestion. So I just take one slide detour to the subject, and just to introduce my group. My group now is called as Multi-Phase Reactors and Intensification Group. And we essentially use experiments, computational modeling, reaction and reactor engineering, and machine learning approaches so that we can develop new insights, innovations, and intensification strategies for well-being of people and well-being of planet. So these are 2 main axes of applications: the well-being of people and well-being of planet. For well-being of people, our group essentially focuses on pharma, healthcare, and food and nutrition aspects. We're essentially developing factory in a box platforms for variety of distributed manufacturing in these sectors. On well-being of planet, there are 2 main themes. One is on decarbonization or effective resource utilizations. That is essentially reactor engineering for large petrochemicals and chemical companies, where we ensure that selectivities and conversions are in the best possible range. Second most important is circular economy and waste valorization. So today I'm going to focus essentially on waste valorization aspect of our overall research portfolio. And even there, I'm going to specifically focus on waste valorization via anaerobic digestion. And I must mention that I'm going to talk about this work, but all this work has been done by my students and collaborators. And I'm happy to tell you that I've been fortunate to get adequate research funding from variety of different funding agencies, not just in UK, but also from India. So I'm running a large Indo-UK project where many Indian institutes are participating, like IIT Mumbai, IIT Delhi, Indian Institute of Petroleum, and also Vasant Sugar Institute, VSI here. If you see my mouse, 2 large sugar mills are also part of our consortium. So we are hoping that some of the results which I'm going to share with you will see implementation in practice in the coming years. Yeah, so I'm really grateful to all these funding agencies and to my students and collaborators. So let's come back to the theme. For anaerobic digestion, as I mentioned to you, anaerobic digestions are slow processes, And there are a variety of ways by which you can improve this anaerobic digestion process, right? So there are ways to improve the rates of anaerobic digestion, either by manipulating your feed composition, okay, manipulating the carbon to nitrogen ratios and so on. I'm not again going to read all of this, but most important for this complex lignocellulosic biomass valorization part is how do we treat this complex structure of lignin, hemicellulose, and cellulose and open up that structure so that microbial consortium in anaerobic digester will be able to access hemicellulose and cellulose and convert that into biogas. Okay? Convert that into even fatty acids and then to biogas. So depending on your objective, you can in fact tune the performance of anaerobic digestion either to make fatty acids or methane or hydrogen, right? And so that's the idea. But the key part there is how do we pre-treat your complex lignocellulosic biomass? And that is what the focus of this talk. So I'm not going to talk about other strategies. I'm going to specifically focus on how do we make this complex lignocellulosic biomass more accessible for digestion. And I'm also going to talk about some of the reactor engineering models for anaerobic digestion so that we can actually help, once we understand and pre-treat biomass, we can use these reactor engineering models to optimize the overall operation, overall conversion of or overall performance of anaerobic digestion. So that's these two aspects is the focus of this talk, though there are many other techniques which can also be used for improving performance of AD. Okay. Well, I've already talked about that we will be talking about pre-treatment. Even in pre-treatment, for example, in pre-treatment of this lignocellulosic biomass, variety of different pre-treatment methods are available. We have recently published a review which has critically analyzed these different pre-treatments and advocated the hydrodynamic cavitation-based pre-treatment. For today's talk, I'm going to speak mainly on hydrodynamic cavitation-based pre-treatment and, as I said, on the modeling of anaerobic digestion apart from other parts, besides the other parts. So let's come back to the main focus of hydrodynamic cavitation. I hope some of you are familiar with the hydrodynamic cavitation. Hydrodynamic cavitation generates very intense localized shear as well as localized hydroxyl radical from water, right? So these are cavitation devices which will generate very high localized hotspots, which will generate hydroxyl radicals and also intense shear. So this intense shear helps to break up the complex lignocellulosic structure, and hydroxyl radical also generates depolymerization of longer chains. So it improves the digestion. So essentially opening up the lignocellulosic matrix and depolymerization caused by hydroxyl radical helps improve the digestion rate. So we want to use this hydrodynamic cavitation for improving the rates as well as improving the yield of biogas from biomass. So this is like a schematic diagram. So typically biogas potential is measured in a lab batch experiment. So you measure the biogas generation versus time. And this is a typical curve. So typically it happens you need about 20 days to convert most of the lignocellulosic biomass to biogas. So if you pre-treat it, you can either improve, well, not either, you can improve the yield of biogas for the same biomass input and also improve the rate of biogas generation, the rate of digestion, correct? In some pre-treatments, you can generate some toxic material which are inhibitors, which may lead to some kind of delay time here. So the goal for pre-treatment is avoid this delay time, improve the rate as well as improve the yield of biogas. Okay? And hydrodynamic cavitation has been shown to realize both these aspects, right? It has been shown to improve rate as well as it has been shown to improve the yield of biogas from biomass. Unfortunately, most of the devices used commercially, which are commercially available, either use small constrictions like orifice or venturi, which are quite susceptible to clogging. So you cannot really use these devices for biomass handling because those will clog. And the other alternative devices are rotor stators, which involves very complex high-speed rotor motion with a very low clearance from the stator. Again, here, clogging potential is relatively less compared to the static devices because of the moving parts, but these are very capital intensive and also require significant maintenance because handling biomass slurries is not easy. It causes a lot of wear and tear. Cavitation itself will cause erosion. Right? So there is a need to develop new devices, and that is what we have done here. So we have developed a vortex-based device, which is called as the VODCA. So vortex-based devices for cavitation. These are in fact being commercialized by a company, Vivira. The key aspect of this device is it avoids those small constrictions, and it also avoids these moving parts like rotor stator. And because of the peculiar design of this device, it causes early inception of cavitation. So we require low energy consumption, doesn't clog, and causes very strong and intense contact between lighter biomass and cavitation. So we essentially focused on this device and have looked at how this kind of device can be used for intensifying rates of digestion as well as improving the yield of digestion from waste biomass. So I'm going to flash a few slides. Anyone interested in any of these, I will be happy to discuss at the end. Many of these results, well, at least half of these results are already published. You will see those in a published papers, right? So typically what happens here is I'm just showing you one example here with a grass silage. So when you treat a slurry of grass in Europe, typically a lot of farms have stored grass for their winter usage in the form of a silage, grass silage. And excess grass silage can be fed to anaerobic digestion for generating biogas. So we could in fact collect the grass silage samples from local farms here in Northern Ireland. And we essentially treated that using our cavitation device. You can see here, cavitation generated by these vortex-based devices can significantly open up this lignocellulosic biomass. It can also cleave the polymer chains so that we can find significant enhancement in biogas yield as well as rate. Okay, and not just grass silage. So this grass silage was obtained from a local agroforest bioscience institute near Belfast. But not just grass silage, we have used this device for really large variety of different biomass feedstocks. So this is one example relevant to India. So we could obtain soya grass samples from India, and you can clearly see that it can substantially improve biogas yield as well as rate of generation of biogas from soya grass sourced from India. The Indo-UK project, which I mentioned to you, which I'm working with IIT Mumbai, IIT Madras, IIT Delhi, IIP Dehradun, and Vasant Sugar Institute from Pune. We have been looking at waste biomass generated by sugar industries. So like press mud, spent wash, as well as the bagasse. And again, you can see here bagasse, it's almost 25% enhancement in biomethane for bagasse. This is published in INDC research a couple of years back. Okay. And you can find an optimum number of passes depending on your overall objective function, depending on your CapEx and OpEx criteria. You can identify optimum number of passes and use that for realizing substantial enhancement in biogas. Okay. Sorry, I'm not showing you lots of results with different biomass because those will look repetitive. I mean, we have found this kind of increase in rate of digestion as well as yield of biomethane for large variety of biomass. Let me switch to modeling exercise and see how we can synergistically use better designs of hydrodynamic cavitation and computational modeling so that we can optimize the overall yield and digestion rates of anaerobic digestion system. So looking at the complexity of anaerobic digestion, initially we thought that we will just use machine learning approaches rather than developing phenomenological models. We did those machine learning approaches, and it is reasonably successful for interpolation. You can see here we use an artificial neural network models to simulate the biomass generation rates for different biomass with different pre-treatment, extent of pre-treatment. The artificial neural network model was successful in interpolating and describing the data. It was not really successful in extrapolating. Well, this kind of extrapolation is not very relevant because most of the industrial systems will operate before this, right? Before you come to a plateau. The models were quite good in interpolation, as you can see from the graph here. However, if our objective is just to find an optimum between the experimentally studied range, probably you can use these machine learning approaches. But our intention was not that. Our intention was to really use the computational models to explore new parameter space so that we can come up with better operating windows for improving performance. So we decided that it will be useful to develop phenomenological models rather than just use the data-driven machine learning approaches. So when we started looking at the modeling approaches for anaerobic digestion, broadly speaking, all those modeling approaches can be grouped into two parts. One, very simple empirical models like first order kinetics, or very complicated models like ADM1. ADM1 and ADM2 are two established International Water Associations models, which take into account all the pathways, biological pathways of microbes and different compounds. It is easy to write down those balance equations in ADM1 like model. However, it is very, very difficult to obtain relevant model parameters because almost invariably no experimental data is available, which will allow you to calculate all those tens of, or in some cases, even hundreds of model parameters if you want to account for all those complex biological pathways. So by utilizing our chemical reactor engineering experience, we thought that we need an intermediate approach between very simplistic empirical model and very detailed model where model parameters are not available. We thought that we will develop an intermediate reactor engineering model which will allow you to extract parameters from the routinely available tests, which are, for example, this kind of a data, right? So if you have this simple laboratory scale biomethane potential data, you should be able to extract model parameters. I'm not going into details of mathematics today. Just be that we essentially develop this reactor engineering model, which is based on three parameters. So mu max, KD, and so death rate of microbial cells, growth rate of microbial cells, and substrate inhibition. So based on simple laboratory scale biomethane data, we were able to extract these three parameters using the model and then use these three parameter models. You can see here with those three parameters, experimental data can be nicely described. The lab experimental data can be nicely described and extract these three parameters. And then those three parameters can then be used for optimizing pre-treatment as well as optimizing the large scale anaerobic digestion designs. So that is the approach which we have taken. Again, very recently, our approach of intermediate modeling of anaerobic digestion has been published in Bioresource Engineering Technology. So we use these models, we use laboratory scale experimental data with the laboratory scale hydrodynamic cavitation pretreatment, and then used our models for optimizing this scaled up operation. So we not only then scaled up the pretreatment, we also scaled up anaerobic digestion to look at what is happening. So initially, even before we scaled up our hydrodynamic cavitation devices, we used these AD models computationally to explore different parameter space and identify whether single stage AD or a multi-stage AD, or how best we can optimize anaerobic digestion designs, right? This is, like, I would say, nothing really new than chemical engineers, chemical reactor engineers have been routinely using these kind of reaction engineering models and doing reactor optimizations. What is new here is anaerobic digesters were not really optimized using those approaches, right? So we we could borrow some of our multi-phase reactors approaches and apply them to anaerobic digestion. And we have come up with better optimization strategies, which I'll share those results in few minutes. So before we started thinking of applying this large-scale AD in practice, the primary constraint was scale up of hydrodynamic cavitation device, because when we are implementing these pre-treatment methods on large scale, obviously we had to first scale up our hydrodynamic cavitation device, which will ensure similar performance even on large scale before we can feed those pre-treated material to larger anaerobic digester. Right? So for that purpose, we used computational fluid dynamic models. We validated some of those models, developed overall framework to look at what happens in one pass in hydrodynamic cavitation device, and then extended those models for optimizing the overall hydrodynamic cavitation scale up and designs. Right? Again, here my purpose for today's talk is not really get into nitty-gritties of computational flow models in the talk itself. If there are any specific questions on computational flow models, I will be happy to answer them at the end. Again, some of these papers and some of this work is already published in different journals, right? So we just want to flash few slides on computational modeling of Vortex devices. So we use these models, validated these models, and then developed a framework by which we can characterize, understand the cavity, generated cavity, their trajectories, how do they interact with biomass particles, how the individual cavity collapses, and what kind of temperature, hammer pressure it generates, what kind of hydroxyl radical it generates. And using all these different submodels, all of these different submodels are already published on different platforms. We essentially use these models to scale up our devices. Then we, in fact, design a batch scale, or I would say a pilot scale, bench scale or a pilot scale device, which the nominal flow capacity for 10 meter cube per hour, validated some of our predictions, and then scaled it up further. Right? So we not just scaled up the cavitation device, we used those scaled up devices, fabricated those larger scale devices, and used them for pre-treating waste biomass on larger scale. So here I'm showing you just comparison of one of those biomasses, press pad. So you can see here our bench scale setup, 1.2 meter cube per hour setup, and a larger scale setup on 20 meter cube per hour setup show similar kind of enhancements in biogas yield with press mud. This press mud was sourced from our collaborator in India, Vasant Dada Sugar Institute. In fact, these large scale tests were also done by Vasant Dada Sugar Institute partners. So I want to gratefully acknowledge their contributions here. So these tests on the left side were done here in my lab, whereas the large scale tests were done by VSI. And we were quite satisfied to see that similar kind of enhancement could be realized. Similarly, Vivira has also used our scaled up designs, and these, in fact, 4 results which I'm showing you here, these results are commercial plants. So these are kind of, some of these are like 50 meter cube per hour, really large scale operations. And you can see here in all those commercial operations, depending on at what level they were operated before, we could generate kind of 20% increase in biogas yield consistently at large scale. So this is kind of an indirect validation of our computational models and scale up strategy that we were successfully able to use and scale up hydrodynamic cavitation based pre-treatment as well as the anaerobic digestion models. Right? So I'm now coming back to my last part of my talk. I have not gone into details, or I have not really discussed science underlying all these advances. What I thought that in today's forum, rather than getting into all the details of underlying science and mathematics, I will give you and share overall results. If anyone interested in understanding more about science and mathematics underlying these advances, I will be happy to engage either after the talk or even separately. Right? So I just want to end my talk by showing you last 2 slides, sharing ongoing work. So we are now focusing on, we were successfully shown how not just the sugar, but in general waste biomass, how do we valorize and intensify anaerobic digestion. But primarily, our focus so far was on improving only bio-CNG, biogas and bio-CNG yield. Okay, currently, we are now focusing more on digestate and further valorization of digestate. So we can in fact use multiple stage anaerobic digestion. And here I'm showing you the second stage. Here again, you can see substantial enhancement in biogas from the digestate, which is coming out from the first stage of digester. This is actually actual data from the digestate collected from the local institute. Plus, we are also now looking at recovering fertilizer in a form which is suitable to deployment in agriculture. So we are trying to capture these fertilizers as struvite fertilizers from digestate. This is kind of an ongoing activity. And particularly in Europe, we are also trying to see whether we can use part of the digestate for generating hydrogen. So which hydrogen can then be used to make in situ upgradation of biogas to bio-CNG. So current established technology for converting biogas to bio-CNG is either use, say, pressure swing adsorption or some other scrubbers, right? But instead of pressure swing adsorption, if we can convert part of the digestate to hydrogen, that can be used for in situ upgradation to bio-CNG. You can sparge this hydrogen back to AD, which will then improve the biomethane percentage in biogas. So these are some of the ideas which we are working on. So I'm quite conscious of the time. So what I'll do is I'll probably stop here. I have tried to tell you that we have used this hydrodynamic cavitation, particularly vortex-based hydrodynamic cavitation, to valorize biomass. Anaerobic digestion offers an attractive platform for wet valorization of wet biomass, particularly in a decentralized fashion. The bio-CNG can decarbonize variety of different sectors, right? Not just the electricity and heat, but more importantly, transportation. And particularly in India, bio-CNG, Government of India is giving significant importance to bio-CNG and have come up with schemes like SATAT, which provides a subsidy. Particularly with SATAT subsidy, we believe that it will be possible to make this commercially viable, to convert the waste biomass available in a decentralized way to bio-CNG for our transportation sector. So I will in fact stop here and will be happy to handle your questions. Thank you.
Yeah,